Muro occidental y hoy vamos a ver los túneles que hay por aquí. Son unas excavaciones arqueológicas. Yo creo que esto quieren mostrar cómo era la montaña antes del templo. Imagino que será eso. Y aquí, no sé cómo está edificada la ciudad. Bueno, ahora nos lo explicarán.
Have you been to the Western Wall tunnels? Some of the same people? Okay. So, great. So again, welcome. The tour is going to be around an hour long. And we're about to see what it is that we're going to do during that hour. This hilltop here, while it may not look like it stands out much from its surrounding hilltops, in Judaism this is the most important place in the world. From here, on here there's a stone known as the foundation stone, which in Judaism we say that the entire world was created from this stone. From the earth of this place, Adam, the first man, was created. Any of you hear the binding of Isaac? Read about it in the news? So, that was here, on this hilltop. If we move a little later on in history, and down the hill, we come to this ridge over here. And here, Jerusalem was declared a capital for the first time in history. Capital of the Jewish people, and in one sense or another, it's been ever since. Not always politically, but in our hearts. So, who declared Jerusalem a capital for the first time? In this case, it wasn't Donald Trump.
King David?
Yeah, King David, great. King David. In fact, for that reason, today, this area is named after him. Yeah, the city of David. Right, if any of you have been to or going to the city of David, that's this ridge over here coming out from the hilltop. Right? So, King David declares Jerusalem as capital, but this wasn't King David's first capital. His first capital was out in Hebron. And there he was king over one out of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribe of Judah. It was only when he was accepted by the entire nation as king, that's when David knew it was time to move the capital to Jerusalem, because David understood that Jerusalem is a place of unity, a place of peace. And only when the entire nation is united, that's when Jerusalem can be our capital. It seems to be a pattern throughout history. We'll come back to it. In the meantime, David wanted to build his first temple. Well, in his eyes, the temple. Right? He didn't know there was going to be a first and a second, perhaps. But he wanted to build a temple. But he wasn't given permission. He laid the foundations of the temple. And who built the first temple? King Solomon, his son. In Hebrew, I heard someone say Shlomo. Right? Shlomo, which is Hebrew for Solomon, comes from the word shalom. Which is how I greeted most of you as you came in. And it means peace. We use it for hello and goodbye. But in essence, what we're doing is when we're greeting someone and when we're sending them off, we're doing so with the blessing of peace. Shalom. Okay? And so, Shlomo, whose name means shalom, he built the first temple. So, David moved the capital to Jerusalem when the nation was united. Shlomo, whose name means shalom, peace, he's the one to build the temple because the temple is founded on peace. It's founded on that idea. We'll come back to that. In the meantime, this temple was destroyed by the Babylonians. Anyone know what day?
9th of Av.
Yes. In the back, 9th of Av, 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av. It falls out in the summer every year. In fact, not too long ago. And every year, till now, we commemorate it. And we sit on the floor in darkened rooms. We don't eat or drink the entire day or the night beforehand. And we read from the book of Lamentations. we ask, how's it possible? How could a city so beloved be left alone like a widow? All of his children who were playing in the streets are gone. How could the house of the creator of the world be destroyed by man? How do you understand such a thing? We'll come back to that question. In the meantime, for 70 years, most of the Jewish nation was sent out into exile from the land of Israel. I say most because from the time that we were brought in with Joshua, there's always been some Jewish people here until today. But most of the nation at this point was sent out to exile. For 70 years. Think about how old you are, how old your parents are. 70 years. Right? That means those who saw it destroyed, for the most part, would not be back to see it rebuilt. So after 70 years, we finally got permission to come back, to rebuild. So we all came running back, right? Well, you'd think so, or at least I would think so. But it's true, we did not come back. We did not come running back. A few did. A few came back, and they didn't have the means to build a proper temple, but they built a very modest temple on that same location. People were comfortable out where they were in Babylon or the surrounding areas. They had a good job, a nice house, fast donkey, and they didn't come back. But the few that did come back, they started the ball rolling. And with time, word got out. The Jewish people are back in their land. The temple is back on its hilltop, and more people start coming back. And as you have more people coming back and the situation improves, the economy improves, so then you can build a more proper temple structure, compound. However, we have a problem. It's the same size hilltop. So we have a little bit of construction to do. If you can't see, please shift around a little bit, okay, so that everyone can see. Here we have our hilltop. What we call, it's known as Mount Moriah. Today we call it the Temple Mount. Around it, almost all around it, we have valleys, areas that are lower than the hilltop itself. And so in order to expand the hilltop, they built arches in the valleys, covered it with earth, and in order to hold everything in, they built walls around it, in essence creating a type of platform. The one exception to that is here in the north, where it's actually higher, so instead of building up, they carved away. And that way, they kind of built a platform. We have our platform, we have our temple, we're back in business. I do encourage you, though, to remember this point here, because we're going to be standing there later. Okay, so wherever else they had to build, they had to build up, here they had to carve away because it was higher up. So we have our walls, which hold in the platform of the Temple Mount. And here in the west, you probably guess it, that's what we call today the Western Wall. Let's take a look at here. This is probably how most of us... Nope. This little area here, this is the part of the Western Wall that we see outside by the Western Wall Plaza. When we come to the Western Wall, or you've seen pictures of the Western Wall, it probably looks pretty big. And you see the people praying next to it, wow, what a big wall. The truth is that we only see a very small part of it, less than an eighth of the entire Western Wall of the Temple Mount, which is approximately half a kilometer long. For those who are thinking in miles, it's less than half a mile, but you'll get an idea of how long it is because we're going to walk it. So just this little part here. And again, that's over here. In the meantime, this temple was destroyed as well. Oh, wait. Why destroyed so quickly, right? Let's have one more word about it before we do. The temple has many different areas to it. If we zoom right in on what's the most important, the most special place, is the innermost room of the sanctuary, known as the Holy of Holies, Kodesh Kodashim. In the first temple, in both temples, there was a rock there, a stone known as the foundation stone, which we spoke about at the beginning, which the sages tell us that the entire world was created from this stone. In the first temple, on that stone you had the Ark of the Covenant with the cherubs. Inside you had the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments. That was in here. In the second temple, that was hidden at the end of the first temple. In the second temple, all we had was the stone. We didn't have the Ark of the Covenant. We don't know where it is. If anyone knows, let us know. Like that. So that's the innermost room. We're going to be talking a little more about this later on. Only one person would go in there one day a year, the high priest on the Day of Atonement. What would he pray for? What would you pray for? Something to keep in mind. We'll talk about it a little later. In the meantime, as we mentioned, this temple was also destroyed. The first one was by the Babylonians, this time by the Romans. And we come back to that same question. How could man destroy the house of the creator of the world? And the truth is that there's a second side to that coin. How could man build a house for the creator of the world? God created the world, and in that world we're going to build a house for him. It sounds a little hard to understand, right? So in Judaism we say, yeah, man can build or destroy a house for the creator of the world, but it's not a place where he's going to sit back in a big chair and watch TV. Right? That's not exactly how we view God. It's a place where we can come to visit him. He needs a place in the world, not for him, for us. We need it, so that we can come and visit. That's the idea of having a temple. And so we can build a house for God. However, as we said, the temple is founded on peace. What happens if you pull out the foundation from under a building? Collapses. Right? You pull out the piece from under the temple without unity, it collapses. You're left with an empty building. The temple, as a temple, was not destroyed by the Babylonians, the Romans. It was destroyed by the Jewish people. It was destroyed by a lack of unity, a lack of peace. That's what they say. That's what they say. It was destroyed by a lack of unity. The Babylonians and the Romans came and they destroyed the building. But a temple as a house of God, as an epicenter of spirituality, destroyed by a lack of peace. And the Jewish sages tell us that it can only be rebuilt when the people are united again. So again, we'll come back to this idea, but in the meantime, we're going to move ahead now a little faster through history because we don't want to spend the entire hour in this room. So on that same foundation stone, we have another building built much later on, the Dome of the Rock. Okay. On top of that same foundation stone, that rock, it's not a mosque, it's a memorial. Here in the south, you have a mosque known as Al-Aqsa Mosque. And recently, only around 700 years ago, Jerusalem, that's recent, that's like a blink of an eye, right? History goes way back here. They wanted to build a neighborhood over here. However, there's a valley here, and they wanted to raise up the neighborhood. So they built arches, and on top of it, they built the neighborhood. Starting to look a little more like it does today from above, right? With the Temple Mount, kind of as it does here. This is already part of the old city of today. This part over here, this is the Western Wall Plaza. Again, less than an eighth of the entire Western Wall. Some of the houses, some of the houses in this neighborhood, one of the walls of their house is the Western Wall, which is pretty cool. We're not going to go into those houses together today, but we're going to go under those houses. In the tunnel that was inadvertently created, meaning they didn't mean to create it, but when you have one arch next to another, you end up with a tunnel. We're going to go through that tunnel to discover the entire Western Wall. Any questions? Yeah, go for it.
Is the foundation stone the same as the sacrificial Abraham stone? Is that stone, or are those two different?
That's a very good question. Two different things. Same general area, but not the exact same area.
So the foundation stone is now missing?
No, we believe it's in here. There's a stone in there. It's basically just the top of the mountain. That's basically what it is. And both say that seems to be the same place. Yeah.
Why did the Muslims get to build this Dome of the Rock, and now that's like their thing? Why did the Jews not get to come back again?
Okay, so that's a very good question. It basically goes by who's in power throughout history, and it's not just here, but it's all around the city and in essence around the world. When one place comes to power, very often they destroy the first place is holy places, and they build a holy place on top. You see it throughout the city, you see it throughout the world. It's kind of a sign of showing our God is stronger than your God, that kind of thing. We don't buy that. We believe in one God, so that doesn't work for us. But why didn't we destroy it back? We believe that the temple is a place of peace. Right? It has to be founded on peace, it has to be built with peace, not through war. It'll be a day. We'll get back to the point a little later on. One more question.
Last question. Was there anything else in the temples that was that like a common place? Were there like stores? Was there like people hanging out there, or was it just to like pray and worship? Was there other stuff?
So good question. There are stores around the area, but not on the Temple Mount itself per se. Only things that you actually needed for the sacrifice, perhaps inside the courts. And even there, it wasn't money; it was some other kind of. You bring like a stamp or something like that. Okay. Yes.
Well, I don't know, but were there any dining? How do you destroy such big structures? Were there dynamite or bombs back in the day? Because I don't believe there were guns, right?
Right. The truth is, they didn't entirely succeed in destroying it, as we'll see. Some of it is still left, but most of it they did destroy through burning, through taking it apart. They had. Most people ask how do they even build it.
Yeah.
The truth is, technology was really much more advanced than we realized. We think of people back then as closer to the monkeys, right? Some of us. So no, they were people. They were smart like we are, and they had their technology as well. Please follow me along.
Oye, si nos vamos pegando un poco más adelante.
We'll start with what's above our heads, the arch. Are the stones large or small? Large. Anyone say small?
Small. Big, long, flat.
Okay. Right, so it all depends what we compare it to, right? For now, we'll just settle on medium. They're large. They're larger than the stones we usually see in construction around us. Smaller than some other stones we see around Jerusalem, or specifically by the Western Wall. We're going to be comparing stones as we go along throughout this tour. It's much more interesting than it sounds. How are they held together? Any cement or mortar?
Wow.
No, right? No cement or mortar. It's weight, pressure, gravity. Right, we have the key stone. It's kind of like a pineapple-shaped wedge, which once it's put into place, holds all the other stones in place as well. Do you have a lot of construction like that back where you come from? Probably not, right?
Hardly ever any construction with stone to begin with.
Right? Yeah.
But I don't understand. It's like a puzzle piece rather than cement and mortar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes?
It holds tight through a puzzle.
It holds tight through the pressure that's formed. Once each stone is in its place, until each stone is there, we wouldn't be running tours through here. Let's put it that way. But once each stone is in place, each one strengthens one next to it.
When was this
So
built?
what do I see
That's a
in
good
between stones?
What do you
What
see
do
in
you see in
between?
between stones?
Probably dirt. Although throughout time it could be there's some places where they did put in some cement and fill, you can see, but that's not how it originally was. By the way, on top of us is a building that's a couple stories high, on top of this arch, right? So it's standing pretty strong, and it's been standing for around 2,000 years. Around 2,000 years, from the times of the temple. Without cement. Pretty good, huh? We'll get back to it in a moment. Here's a question that you can ask anywhere in Israel, and certainly in Jerusalem. And I encourage you to try to remember it and ask keep it in mind as you're wandering around the country. And it goes like this. If I could look through the floor right now, what would I find beneath my feet? Where you're walking around, what history are you walking on? There was one person who said that when you're walking around Israel, you should be walking without shoes, barefoot. Because everywhere you go, you're stepping on verses. I said, yeah. But either way, everywhere you go, our history is popping out of this ground. Sometimes quite literally. To the point where, by law, anywhere where there's construction in this country, even something seemingly as simple as building a road, there must be an archaeologist on staff by law, because you will uncover history. You will. It happens often that people are walking on trails here in Israel, sometimes Israelis, sometimes foreigners, and they'll find. You'll always find little pieces of pottery, but they'll find coins from the Jewish revolt and from other periods throughout history. It happens. People walking on trails, there's an ancient Jewish coin. It's pretty crazy. They found, by the entrance of Jerusalem, they're building this whole commercial center or whatever, business center. And as soon as they dig down, they find the remains of a Roman base, a Roman fort, from one of those legions that helped to destroy Jerusalem. Right there, that they didn't know about. All different kinds of things. You find it all over. In this case,
Why do you think there's so many structures beneath the current level? Do you think that they were trying to hide certain structures, or was that the level at that time and then things shifted over time?
okay, so that's an interesting question. After this, we're going to save questions though for well, I don't always remember to ask, but I'll try to remember to ask at the end of each place, okay? In this case, why is there layer on top of layer? Generally, it's simply because it's easier than cleaning, right? It's like when you sweep up a room, and where do you put everything? You put the rug on top of it. No, we would never do that. But they did, right? Instead of clearing everything out, when something's destroyed, you kind of flatten it a little bit, you throw a bunch of earth on top of it to flatten it, and then you build on top of it. And then you end up with each thing being higher and higher and higher and higher. So that's why we keep going lower and lower and lower. Okay? So that's the general idea. So if we could look through the floor right now, what would we find beneath our feet? And the first thing we would find is an arch, very much like this one. And we'll discuss what's underneath that second arch in a moment. Okay, so here we have the Temple Mount as it would look at the times of the temple. And over here we have this area over here, which was the old city of today. In fact, we know that there were priests, not only Jews, but priests living in this area, because people of the old city of today dug down under their houses, Jewish people, dug down under their own houses, and found remains of houses of their ancestors. Right? 1,000 years earlier. I don't see shocked eyes. People are with me. That is crazy. Keep in mind, 70 years heads out, 2,000 years heads out. Right? We come back, we build houses, we finally get a chance to dig under those houses at some point, and it's the same place. It's our ancestors. That's pretty crazy. Anyway, so that's this area over here. Now, any of you who came from the old city of today, specifically from the Jewish quarter, you probably had to come down lots of stairs just to get to the western wall. And when you did, you found that you were at the foot of another hill, Temple Mount. Right? So that means that priests living here on the way to the temple would either have to go down and up and down and up and down and up and down and up, or have a bridge. And the bridge that they did have was used for the priests, for some degree for the people as well, and as an aqueduct to bring water. That bridge was built arches on top of arches. We're standing right now inside the top arch, one right before the western wall itself. We're inside the arch of the bridge. This top arch, one right before the western wall itself. See it? That arch over here. We're inside it. Okay, so that's how the priests would get to the temple. But most people didn't go over the bridge itself. They would go through one of the other entrances to the Temple Mount. But, as today, you can't just go onto the Temple Mount in Jewish law. Anyone who would want to go to the Temple Mount, there was a process beforehand called purification. And one stage in that process, it's a spiritual cleaning, not a physical cleaning. One stage was what's known as a mikvah, a ritual bath. Okay, this is something that's still done today in Judaism. It's in Jewish law, those who think that it's okay to go up onto the Temple Mount would still say that they have to immerse in their mikvah properly before going up. And so it was back then. With our ancestors, they did that as well. Except that you have an entire nation going up 3 times a year. That means you need a ritual bath factory, right? Lots of people can go through. Yeah. So lots of them. That's one thing. And they found over 175 in this area alone. But this one is kind of unique because it's large. It has stairs going down on one side, up on the other side. I guess it's kind of so that you can keep people moving along, right? Again, because you have lots of people going on their way. We're going to practice looking through the floor so that when you're outside, you can look through the floor in your imagination and try to imagine what's beneath your feet. But in this case, I'm going to help you. We have a window in the floor over here. So we'll look down through the window. I'll show you the best angle to look. The best angle is this angle over here. You can really see stairs going down on one side and up on the other side. Okay. And that's the ritual bath. You feel free to take pictures, take a look, and then please make room for other people to take a look. And wherever you see it, we're going to continue on in this direction. If you have questions, please come ask on the way.
You can't go down there, huh?
I guess it's not safe for people to be walking around. Big plus?
Esta era una gran piscina para tener el baño ritual.
Those are all new. Oh my. Oh, sorry, miss, I'm gonna go after you, sir.
Padre Félix, póngase así. Sonría. Sonríe, sonríe que no. Ahí.
Okay, I don't usually start with this, but we will start with the smell because it's here. The way the synagogues right above our heads, they're, I guess, putting those final touches on, and as such, a little smell of some kind of coating they're putting on. Really pretty cool though. Pretty cool. Next time you come in here, you'll probably be sitting out right above where we're sitting. Okay. Welcome to the Western Wall. Same Western Wall that you see outside by the Western Wall Plaza continues on in here and all the way down. We're walking all along it the entire way. Just about. Can I have a volunteer on this side? Not difficult? We'll just go down to the end of the stone, please. No? Yeah, you'll see it right there. Right there. Right. You see like the crack in the wall? Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And on this side, do you mind helping me? Thank you. Just to the end of the stone, let's leave. Yep. Perfect. Great. Please, if you can't see, come a few steps closer. You want to see this. Look where our two friends are. This is one massive stone. One stone. You see? You've been here before. Yeah. Okay. You can come on back. Thank you. You did great.
Es una piedra única.
One massive
Habéis visto,
stone.
no sé si habéis
We're
visto
talking
los dos
about
hombres que había en el
13.5
extremo.
meters long. That's over 40 feet. 4.5 meters high. Approximately 3.5 meters deep. You ready for this? How many tons? How much did it weigh? 570 tons. Let's put that in perspective a little bit. Most of you probably came here on a 747 jumbo jet. This is two of those. With passengers, luggage, everything. That's heavy. Two planes sitting here. Now the question that usually comes to mind is how they move it, right? That comes back to that idea of the technology that they had. I keep it in suspense for now. We'll talk about it a little later. Okay? But in the meantime, 570 tons. These are the largest ones. They're not all this large, but we are talking about large stones. Not only that, you can see outside as well. Can you hear me in the back over there? Okay, good. You can see outside as well that every stone has a frame etched around it. The center is smooth. The holes are from later. I'm not going to talk about that now. The center is smooth, and there's a frame around every single stone etched around it. Okay, that doesn't happen naturally. That's done every single stone. As a work of art was prepared. We're talking about, again, 1/2 kilometer long. It's about 30 meters high from street level. That's like a 10-story building, a skyscraper. There are 4 walls. They're not all 1/2 kilometer long. But how much shorter can they be, right? We're talking about a lot of stones. Every single one with a frame around it, with a smooth center. And not only that, but every stone, here there's some stones that look almost brand new, they're not, but they're so unweathered. Now when you take a close look, you can see that every stone has a triple frame around it. Not one, 3. There's the clear one that everyone can see even outside. And then there's some stones in here that are almost look new. You can see a change in pattern in 2 places along the edges, which make, in essence, a triple frame around every single stone. We're talking about, you're looking at a work of art. And we're only looking at its ankles. Imagine what the temple itself must have looked like in all of its glory. What was your question? How thick? It's approximately 3.5 meters deep. Other questions about this? Yeah.
Is this what's known as Jerusalem stone? Is the wall Jerusalem stone, and what is Jerusalem stone?
Okay. When you walk around Jerusalem, you'll see that all the buildings are coated in stone. It's not made of stone, it's coated in stone. It's a law that was been in place since the British Mandate period, before the state. And what that means is that every building has to be coated in the local stone to keep the Jerusalem atmosphere. So that it looks kind of like when buildings were built out of the local stone. So in essence, yes, it is Jerusalem stone because both this and the stones that are coated the buildings are made from the same stone. It's all local, known as limestone. Yeah.
So it was a mountain before all of the structure was built. Couldn't it be just carving through the mountain that this huge structure, like just carving through it, or am I being kind of, like in terms of, because you can't, it's on top of the mountain or you're carving through the mountain?
Okay, so it's, for the most part, it's not carved, it's built up around the mountain, making it into like a platform around the mountain. Meaning if we were to go right through this wall, let's put it that way, if it was before the wall was built, there would be nothing. At some point, you'd reach the mountain itself. If we go through it now, most likely it would be filled with some kind of earth and some other kind of stuff until you would reach the mountain itself, which has been extended through the earth that was poured and the stones that are here, holding it in. Okay, where we're about to go is perhaps the most special place here in the tunnel tours. Let's do a quick review of where we've been. stand here so that everyone can see. This darkened area over here, that's the area of the western wall that we see outside by the Western Wall Plaza. We came inside and we were standing inside the arch of the bridge, right? We walked through the arch and we came to the Western Wall. Where we're about to go is the place directly across from the Holy of Holies. We're only going to be walking outside the wall. We're not walking under the Temple Mount itself. But we're walking along the Western Wall from the outside, and the next stop, by those stairs right ahead of us, is right across from the Holy of Holies. So just a quick word on that, because there it's a little bit hard to hear. As we had mentioned, only one person would go in one day a year, the high priest on the Day of Atonement. And I'd asked you what would he pray for, I'd asked you what you would pray for, because you're going to get a chance there, for anyone who would like. He would pray for, well, on the one hand, peace, yeah, but you know what? He had a nice list of things. He'd pray for himself and his family and the nation and, in essence, the world, because he would pray for rain for the coming year, so that all of existence, all of life can continue to exist. And he'd pray for the individual woman who would give birth that year. Please make some room so people can get by. The individual woman who would give birth that year, that she should give birth in health. Meaning the individual and all of life on the planet. The greatest and the smallest. That's just everything. It's all open. Prayer is for anything and for everyone. And the truth is, for everywhere. But here, it's not picking up a phone. It's coming to visit, as you had mentioned before. The idea is when you come here, you're coming to visit. You're coming home. That's the difference. And for that reason, if you look around at synagogues anywhere in the world, they're all facing this place. And I don't mean the stairs, I mean what's just beyond the stairs, the place of the Holy of Holies. Any synagogue you go to anywhere in the world, because we believe that all prayers come here before going up to heaven. This is home, this is the place here on earth. So they all come here before ascending up to heaven. And if that's the case, not only any synagogue that you go into today, but I've been in plenty of ancient synagogues or remains of them, any synagogue that you go into, from any time period where there's a synagogue, whether it's fully built or remains, they all face this place. It's pretty incredible. You know when you look out to the sea, you see the horizon, that place where heaven and earth meet? You know it doesn't look all that far, but you could never actually reach it? You've reached it. This is it. Just beyond those stairs, on this side, that's where heaven and earth meet. So we're going to take a couple moments. Anyone who would like to pray, to contemplate, or just generally try to connect, there's a good chance to do it. I encourage you to remember your family members, your health, your bank account, why not? Right? And peace for Jerusalem and for the world. We're going to be right on the other side in a few moments.
Pues fijaos, esta es la piedra, aquí empieza la piedra, es que estoy muy cerca. Como esta es la piedra esa tan gordota que ha dicho el guía. Fijaos cómo va. Aquí es que el guía ha invitado a rezar porque estamos de hecho en el muro occidental. Y yo creo que va hasta aquí. Va hasta aquí. Estamos caminando a lo largo del muro occidental por fuera. estamos en el lugar más cercano al Santo de los Santos.
I'm not going to use the microphone here, so if you can hear, please come a little closer. We won't be here long, only a few minutes. I just don't want to disturb you while it's still praying. Okay, so we're going to go back to comparing stones. We have these stones over here. I think we can all agree at this point that they look relatively small. Right after the big stone. I think any stone you've seen that's your life looks small like that. But these you can say are much smaller. And how are they held together? There's some kind of cement and mortar there holding each stone, right? So you look at this and it's a totally different kind of construction than pretty much everything you see until now. We're looking at a different time period. This is the 700 years ago that I was telling you about. Meaning that above our heads right now, above this arch, there's a house. There's an entire neighborhood under where we're going to be walking. This arch meets up with the western wall itself. Right? These are those arches I was telling you about. What they build is that they can build a neighborhood a little bit higher up. Now, the goal of building the arch is that the neighborhood would be higher. But that means that they have an open area under the house. It's a very dry region. You have an open area. It's real estate. You might as well use it, right? And so they covered the walls with plaster. You see plaster on both sides. And they made holes in their floor. That's our ceiling. And this was a cistern, a pit used for storing water. They could send down buckets through their floor, bring up water, right? But at some point, they got plumbing. They don't need the cistern anymore. And so they sealed up the holes in the floor. We're going to see a couple more of these as we go on. You'll see plaster on the wall, you'll see closed up holes in the ceiling, and you'll know we're in another cistern. We're going to be going now through a narrow passageway. Hopefully those groups will start coming back as we're going through. That's occasionally, if they do, so just be courteous. Okay, we'll keep fast on our way. But as we go, I'm not going to speak to you because it's very narrow. We're going to be passing over two windows in the floor. They're safe to walk on, not a problem. The first window you look down, and again you're going to see more stones. Some of these stones have that frame around it. What you're looking at is literally the destruction of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount by the Romans. 70 of the common era. You're literally looking at the destruction. You're looking at the 90-day law in that time period. Because those stones came from higher up the western wall, were thrown down by the Romans, and the archaeologists did not move them. You're looking at them exactly as they were thrown down. Listen closely, you can almost hear that crash on the ground. The second window, you look down, you see how far down beneath where we're standing now, the western wall goes down. Go all the way down to bedrock. And I want you to try to notice one more thing. As you're walking along the stones, look at the stones themselves. Look at the stones of the western wall. And as we said, some of them look almost brand new, even though they're not. They're original stones. See if you can notice that triple frame. The one clear frame that you always see, and the two changes in patterns along the edges. We'll meet right on the other side in a couple of moments. How far down is the rock? It changes as we go because it's on an incline, but you'll see it. Any other questions before we go?
Where is it towards the Temple Mount exactly?
Well, right past the Holy Holy. Right past the Holy Holy.
this area, the Holy of Holies, this is where the Holy Spirit now is resolved. As we're standing right now. Right on the other side. You mean this? The closest place you can possibly come from outside the mountain. Is over here. We're going to be walking all around.
Una cisterna. Esta es una cisterna medieval. Esto creo que me da la impresión de que han dicho que es ya la roca sobre la que se apoya la bedrock. Parece que hay una escalera del periodo asmoneo o restos. Esto es un antiguo, ahora ya no sé cómo se dice en español, guardarraíz, lo que se pone al lado de las carreteras, calle Herodiano. Movimiento de
foot is pretty much right over here.
There were two window places we walked over. One was
One of them you see the stones going down to the western wall, construction. And one of them you see down below the upper half.
One point we see the part of the building, the temple, the rocks, all this incredible technology 2,000 years ago. We see a point where it declines and where that's lost.
Quick question. Don't say it was the temple. I don't think so. I mean, in this specific area or in general? I think it changed. I don't think it necessarily the technology today is very different than it was then. Please come out here. There's room for everyone. But that doesn't mean it's defined as a place. Change. There are some systems. We're not engineers. Each have their ways of dealing with their stuff.
How many people were in this area at the time? Because obviously it would take a lot of people to move 500,000 ton on the stone.
Right.
That's only one stone, right?
Well, you had lots and lots of people working on the project. It was a project that took decades. We don't know exactly how long, but I don't know exactly how many people were involved. It's a hard thing to pin down.
according to James, I think 20,000 volunteer warrants. 20,000 shift to 20,000 went out build the temple.
But that was the first step. Right. So I don't know exactly how that compares. That's a good thing to know because that will maybe put things a little bit in perspective. I don't know exactly how it compares.
I mean, because that's a good long-term date. It's
Yeah. To the point where when they stop building, it causes a problem for people out of work. That could be one of the things that leads to some of the turbulence that happens after. But let's come back to where we are now. Because there are a couple of things that are kind of strange here in this room. Let's start with what's not strange. Here on the right side, we have stones of the western wall brought in from probably a local quarry, a place we cut out stone, just like everything we've seen until now. On the left side, these aren't stones. It's the mountain itself. When I'm putting my hand on, this is Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. You don't usually get to see this around Jerusalem because it's so built over, but this is the mountain itself. And so here, instead of bringing in stones, they carved into it to make it look like it matched everything else. Why do they have to do that here? Where are we? Where are we? Is this another group behind me? Is that a guy? So please leave rooms that the group can pass through. Part out of the model instead of building up. So that's where we are right now, up in the north. In fact, you can see kind of over here. Right here, the bedrock rises. And so here they had to carve away instead of building up. What's strange is not that. What's strange is that they didn't finish the job. They didn't finish carving away. And another thing is behind us, these pillars. Often you'd have these where you'd have something like shops or something like that in between. And to make it look like solid pillars, they would put one stone on top of another, which is easier than making solid pillars. And they'd use these bumps that they'd leave on either side. Right where your head is, careful. Yeah, good. That bump, you'd have one on either side, use it to lift one stone on top of another, smooth it off, like here where you don't see one, and plaster it over. And then it looks like it's one or two solid pillars. The strange thing is, it's not done. You put all that work into every single stone of the western wall, and right across from it, you leave it like that, unfinished.
Obviously interrupted by
interrupted. So the answer I've been hiding behind me is this stone over here, smoother than the ones in the Western Wall itself, and matching. By the way, this is exactly how archaeologists found it, waiting here for 2,000 years for us, matching the stones you're standing on. The original street from 2,000 years ago that my ancestors and probably many of your ancestors walked down. This stone was to be the very next one put in as soon as this part of the wall, or the mountain, was cleared away, and they continued the street. This was the main street, coming right along the Western Wall. Pilgrims coming on pilgrimage, right? The Jewish people coming on pilgrimage, or anyone else coming on pilgrimage for that matter, they'd come through here because you have to buy things when you're on your way to the Temple Mount. You have to buy animals or pottery or garments or whatever else that you need. There, by the way, every person would put aside money specifically to spend in Jerusalem throughout the year. So you're coming here, you're going to spend that money. That's what you've been saving it for. So they'd come through here and they'd buy things. This street was never completed because they dropped everything and prepared for a rebellion, a war which in many respects they lost. It was a failure. Led to the destruction of Jerusalem, the exile of most of the Jewish nation, again, never all, but most of the Jewish nation. This street that my ancestors and many of your ancestors walked would be covered in rubble and never walked again by any Jewish or any other feet, replaced by a street system known as the Cardo, which some of you may have seen part of it in the Old City. Never walked again until today. Until today, when the Jewish people are coming back and everyone who's accompanying us. And we're not coming back one by one anymore. We're talking about plane loads every year from all over the world. Anyone who's here, whether you're here for the long run, which I hope you are, or you're here for just a couple of days, you're part of that. You're part of that. And whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, you're part of this moment in Jewish history, and general history, when the Jewish people are coming back to their land, walking those same stones as our ancestors, and reconnecting to our heritage. Now we have things like that to move the stones. As we know, we'll speak about it a little more on the other side.
פיזית היה קשה להגיע, והרבה אנשים היה להם תמונה בבית של הכותל, זכרו את הכותל, כן? אבל לעשות בר מצווה ליד הכותל המערבי זו ממש גדולה. אחרי 2,000 שנה היה בגלל
Quizás aquí en este momento he retrocedido y ya no sé si estoy donde me había quedado, pero bueno, que estamos siguiendo por este acueducto.
cómo.
Esto debe de ser una cisterna. No se ve por el agua que hay.
We've reached our last stop together. Here at the temple. This is our last stop together. When we didn't see the video, it's okay, it's a very short video, it's not live footage. Give away the secret. Basically what it shows is that they used pulleys, they used pieces of bird, as we mentioned. They used all different kinds of things that they had at the time to try to move it along. Again, they weren't using computers, they weren't using cranes as we know them today, but they certainly used those kind of the physics that we use today. They used it back then as well. And we know that they used these things, first of all, we know that they used it because it's there. Somehow they moved it, right? We don't, there are those who argue on the theory, but at the end of the day, we know what they used in Rome and other areas around. We're talking about the same time period. So they used the same technology. As far as what we walked through after that, we walked through an aqueduct. We left the Western Wall, we walked through an aqueduct. We arrived here. In this pool, the water comes trickling through the ground, although in the past it was open to the heavens. And water would collect here, and it would be used by the pilgrims, and it would be used at the temple, in essence for the people. The arch above us is Roman, part of a fortress built over the water, in essence using it against the people, and against the temple. But I want to go back to when we first entered, and I greeted you with the word shalom. We spoke about what shalom means, peace and unity, and the times of David, the times of Solomon, Shlomo. The name comes from shalom. We spoke about the destruction of the temple because of lack of shalom, and that it can only be rebuilt when we're united again. And I bring this up now because there's a message that goes out from Jerusalem. It does. I know it reaches all over the world because people come from all over the world. They want to hear what is that message. And it's not always clear. And it's not always the right message. But the message that is supposed to go out is a message of peace. We wrote a book about it. It's called the Bible. It's pretty popular. And it talks about peace. It talks about treating people right. It talks about wars. But the point isn't the wars. The point is the message of it. And that's a message of peace, treating people right, unity. That's the message of Jerusalem. That's what it's always been supposed to be. That's what it always was supposed to be. And it's our prayer that quickly in our day, Jerusalem will again be a beacon of light, peace, and spirituality for the entire world. People will point to Jerusalem and say, that's what peace looks like. And we want it too. Amen. Each in their own way. Thank you so much for joining me. The water here trickles through. It's limestone. Remember we said that you need plaster to make a cistern? That's because water trickles through without plaster. So there's no plaster here. So there's water.
And in the summer, how did that happen?
It's here from the winter. It's still trickling through. You might have felt drops even over there. We're going to go back now to the Western Wall Plaza. That's where I'm going. How many people? We're going to be going out through the streets and I'm going back to the Western Wall Plaza. How many people would like to come back with me? There's very few. Most of you want to go off on your own? How many people want to go off on their own? Try it that way. Okay, that's very 3-2. Okay. So what I'm going to ask is that anyone who'd like to go off on your own, I'm going to say shalom. You can please go right up ahead. Enjoy. Anyone who'd like to come back with me, please stay for just a moment, and then we're going to head out together. So what we're going to do is when we go out, we're going to have 2 nice different squares. One in the front, one in the back.
Si vamos por aquí, ¿no es la salida? Bueno, tenemos aventuras. Hemos salido aquí. Esta es la salida justo.